Hi friends. Thank you for being here, even though there's food there. So I'll try to go through fast, but I'm like, you're the superhero staying here, so this is awesome. As Vail mentioned, I'm Mariana Budnikova. I'm a staff software engineer at Adobe, and I'm working on the Premiere video editing app, about to come to Android side. This is my first time at Lead Dev, both as a speaker and as a presenter, so I'm super stoked to be here today with you. And during this talk, you are going to learn about crowdsourcing platform engineering. And if you were to take only one thing from this talk, at the end of the talk, it would be the system that you can use to build shared ownership of platform code. Platform engineering at Cash App did not start with a platform team. It started with volunteers, curious engineers that were annoyed enough to fix things that they just went and fixed them. These engineers realized that they needed someone to help them out because they were doing this part-time. So they wrote a proposal for a new role and submitted it to the leadership and got it approved. That's a big task in a big org. Then a former colleague referred me to that role, and that's how I became the first full-time Android developer experience engineer at Cash App. Recently, like many teams across the industry, I'm sure you have heard, Cash App, part of Block, went through layoffs, and I'm no longer with the company. I'm at Adobe now. But the culture that we built at Cash App and the lessons that I learned from it continue to shape how I think about engineering and platform engineering in general, and build it at Adobe nowadays. Because the story that I want to share with you today is not about a role or a company. It's about a culture that makes that role necessary. Now, a quick show of hands for people to wake up before going to lunch. Yay. Who here has ever filed a ticket to a platform team and then waited for weeks that something you know could have been done in like a day? Yes, my peeps there. Who works here on an organization that has both platform teams and feature teams? Yep, a lot of folks. And do platform teams always deliver exactly what feature teams need, exactly when you need that? I mean, sometimes, maybe, but often something else happens. At many mid-sized to large-sized companies, and I've worked at some of them, including Dropbox, Block, and Microsoft, I saw the same pattern emerge. As companies grow, platform teams become more centralized. And the more centralized they become, the more disconnected they become from their customer, you, the developer. And that has pretty bad consequences. Platform teams basically become ticket queues for tickets that never get fixed. Tools drift from real product needs. Feature teams lose trust in their platform teams. And of course, the delivery to our end customer, who we're getting paid by, does slow down. So at Cash App, while I was there, we tried something unusual. We crowdsourced platform engineering. We came back to the spirit of startup. For those who are in the startups here, you wear many hats. But we were still able to operate at scale. At Cash App, when I joined in, I noticed that some of the feature engineers were naturally gravitating towards improving tooling, improving build systems, things that keep the code running, CI. They were curious, and they really cared about the workflow of the software engineering. So they wanted to make things better, not just for themselves, but for their friends, their colleagues, for other teams. So instead of isolating this platform work in its own organization, we actually leaned into this curiosity. I started by building relationships. I was a full-time developer experience engineer. This was my main job, building relationships across the software organization. I met with every type engineer, from very junior out of college to staff and principal engineers, and really tried to understand what kind of problems they were facing. I asked them questions. I asked them, hey, what's your process of merging a pull request? And then, do you have dragons in your code base? Where do they live? Find them. What slows you down the most? These conversations sparked ownership. And then one engineer that I met with at Cash App told me, I have to search through release branches all the time to find where my code shipped. My previous company had release tags. I wish we had this here at Cash App. So I asked one simple question. Would you like to help build that? And fortunately, she said, yeah, sure. So together with this engineer, we worked to implement release tagging. And that dramatically improved how we did release debugging and visibility into the release. And that engineer got promoted to a staff level role. So yay. So this moment taught me something interesting. That platform engineering does not scale because you just hire more platform engineers into your platform org. It scales because you invite more engineers into the platform work. But that was one engineer. This was just one project that worked on. But this pattern repeated multiple times, all the cat scaling. Over time, more engineers started showing up with more ideas. They saw that the contributions that they were making actually mattered. They saw their colleagues get recognized. And then they thought, I could do that. Some major FOMO, fear of missing out there. But the most important, the most surprising thing was where this pattern went next. Cash App and Square, both were part of a bigger company called Block, operated almost entirely separately from each other. It was very interesting. They had different reporting chains, different tooling, different culture. We even had a different Slack workspace. There was no structural reason for us to collaborate together. But because we made that work visible and attributed it publicly, the Square mobile developer experience team started engaging with the Cash App one-person team, and then all the volunteers that I worked with. So we moved from Firebase Test Lab to in-house Android test farm. This is something that Square built. And test flakiness improved significantly. CI builds that used to take over 40 minutes just significantly dropped. It was awesome. The cool thing, two teams that had absolutely no mandate to collaborate with each other found common ground because they saw that the work was visible and the credit was shared. So as you can see, culture crosses boundaries when you allow it to. And then something unexpected happened, even more. I helped organize the Cash App Developer Productivity Day. It was Cash App mobile engineers only. And 20 engineers volunteered to present at it. More than 60 engineers showed up across the Cash App mobile to learn and to share the tooltips and to learn about other tooltips of developer productivity. Feature engineers were presenting tooling improvements. platform engineers were for the first time learning about product workflows. That was exciting. And people felt safe enough to contribute and proud enough to share. And that's it, I know. That's when I knew that this had worked. I realized that shared ownership, this system, was not random. It actually followed a pattern, a repeatable system that you can just kind of take and implement literally anywhere. It wasn't just Cash App specific. That system has 5 components: visibility, contribution, recognition, empathy, and rotation. Let me walk you through each one of them, and also the steps once you get back to your offices, tomorrow, next week, whenever, what you can bring by implementing this system to your organization. First is visibility. People need to know what platform teams are doing. If your stakeholders are constantly asking, what is the platform team even working on? Why are they getting paid? That's a problem. We created visibility through simple weekly updates. There is a screenshot here, what kind of look like. Really, it's 3 things. Think of it as your normal stand-up. What we did last week, what we were planning to do next week, and what help we needed. When stakeholders noticed something that they really deeply cared about in that update, they could engage real time by posting comment. Instead of waiting for that quarterly review or filing a ticket that goes to the black hole. This built trust. And this is what visibility does. It transforms questions into conversations, and those conversations lead to the trust between the teams. So what do you do when you come back to the office? Start this week or next week when you go back to the office, write 1 short update. Share it where your stakeholders hang out, wherever, Slack channel. Do it again next week. And next week. Create that habit. Now, the second component is contribution. Any feature engineer should be able to just jump in and help. And that means a prioritized backlog of well-scoped issues, reliable tests, good documentation, and an answer that every engineer is silently asking in their head, will this contribute and count for my career? Engineers are willing to contribute to platform work. They're excited. What stops them is friction. If every issue in your backlog requires deep context and crazy knowledge, even to understand, then that contribution stops before it even starts. It's blocked. So what do you do when you come back to the office? Audit your backlog immediately. If you cannot find 5 issues, Jira tickets, whatever issue tracker you use, that a motivated mid-level engineer can just pick up and make progress on without asking too many questions, that is the work to do first. You need to identify those problems, label them, and then tell people that they exist, that they can help, and talk to the managers of the feature engineers. Managers need to understand how this contribution helps not only those engineers' careers, it also helps their organization as overall. It's not just your roadmap that you're trying to fix. The third component is, lots of leaders here, is recognition. Recognition should be public, and it should be consistent. When engineers contribute to any platform work, that work needs to be visible across the entire organization and up to the leadership. So I created this Slack channel, what was called Cache MDX Updates, Mobile Developer Experience Updates. And every week, I wrote about what shipped, and I named every person at Slack, every person who contributed. And it wasn't just a generic, oh, the team did great work. No, it had names, project, the impact to the company. Those are important. And I made sure that that specific Slack channel was visible to directors, VPs, the people who would sit in those promotion committees later on. And that channel became something that people looked forward to. Engineers felt seen. And when engineers saw their colleagues named week after week after week, and some of them get promoted, they start asking, I want to be in that update. Again, FOMO. Recognition rewards behavior, but most importantly, it scales it. So, what do you do? Find the right venue for organization again. It can be a Slack channel, all hands call out, leadership email, whatever it is, what works for you. And then use it every single week, without exception. Every single week. Consistency is what changes the culture. Empathy. Empathy goes both directions. Feature engineers need to understand the complexity of platform work. And platform engineers need to understand the pain of feature development, the constant context switching, the pressure to ship, and then frustration of flaky tests on a Friday night. Many companies try to build this empathy through surveys, and I love surveys. I love quantitative data. Dashboards are super useful, but surveys tell you what is happening, and the conversations tell you why. And so I combined both of them. I ran developer experience surveys. The DX folks are sponsoring this. This is awesome. I ran those for breadth. And then qualitative interviews for depth. The interviews, of course, took longer. They took a lot longer time to synthesize, even with AI help. But they were a trove of helpful information. And the problem set really would never have appeared in a drop-down box. So what do you do when you come back to the office? Schedule 3 interviews with engineers this month. Ask them questions. Have conversations. Ask them what scares them, what slows them down, those dragons, what they wish had existed. And then, listen. The most valuable insights often come at the very end of the conversation, when the formal part is over, you've asked all the questions on your list, and then the engineer says, "Ooh, I forgot one more thing." Now, the last part is rotation. It kind of ties everything up together, the whole system. The deepest form of empathy is first-hand experience. You can read every survey and interview literally every single engineer in your company. But I didn't fully understand feature development pressure until I felt that product deadline looming over me. Scary. And you too would not truly fully understand platform complexity until you are the one who are suddenly maintaining the test infrastructure that serves hundreds of developers. When engineers swap those roles, even briefly, they experience the full developer lifecycle. They see the whole path. They stop making assumptions about the other side. You will never fully feel the pain until you feel it too. So, what do you do next? Propose one rotation next quarter. It doesn't have to be a month long. It can be 2 weeks. Just pick a sprint. A platform engineer joins a feature sprint, fixes a bug, maybe ships a very, very small feature. Or a feature engineer joins a platform team, does some tooling improvement, maybe some build improvement or CI. And that transforms how those engineers communicate and collaborate going forward. Rotation builds trust faster than words ever will. So what happened when we implemented this system at Cash App? We'll start with numbers. Execs love numbers, so I have to put numbers in every slides or in every presentation. CI builds times dropped from over 40 minutes to less than 19 minutes. We saved approximately 4,000 developer hours per annual. 60 engineers showed up in a room to share what they have built and to share their tool tips. And one engineer, the one who said, "I wish we had release tags here," she got promoted to staff level role. But the real result, it's not the numbers. In those 60 engineers in the room attending and learning from each other, nobody required them to be there. A junior developer at the front explaining a performance win to a staff engineer. A feature engineer showing tooling that she'd built at her own time. A platform engineer hearing for the first time what it's like to ship under a product deadline. That's culture. And it doesn't live in your code base. It lives in your people. So if you were to take one thing from this talk, take this system. Visibility. So people know what you're doing and then can engage and help you out. Contribution. So the door is open to contribute and the path is clear where you're trying to get to. Recognition. So that effort is seen and that behavior scales. Empathy. So both sides understand each other's constraint. And then rotation. So that understanding becomes firsthand. You do not need all 5 right away. Start with one, but start with one. AI will write more code. Lots of AI talks at this conference. But it will not build the culture to own that code for you. The faster AI moves, the more important it becomes that we feel, as developers, we feel genuine ownership over the systems that we run. The kind of ownership that makes you fix something at 11 p.m., not because you're on call, but because you're curious, because you care. And that comes from culture. And the culture is built from each conversation, each contribution, and act of recognition. It didn't start with a platform team. It started with volunteers, curious feature engineers who cared enough to fix things that just bothered and annoyed them. Your platform team needs more people who feel like that belongs to them. And you do not need to hire more to do this. Ask one person this week. Would you like to help build that? That's your homework. Thank you.